This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
Let's move over to another case that we've been talking about for quite some time. Kouri Richins, 2 weeks before Kouri faces a jury on aggravated murder charges, her defense team dropped a bombshell motion alleging prosecutors are intimidating witnesses, including threats of arrest and the revocation of immunity. This comes on top of the October revelation that the state's key fentanyl sourcing witness also recanted, claiming he never sold fentanyl to the housekeeper, allegedly in this drug chain. With pretrial rulings limiting the FBI profiler's testimony, excluding domestic violence evidence, and the admissibility of the walk the dog letter still partially unresolved, this case is going to trial with both sides wounded. Former prosecutor and defense attorney Eric Faddis has followed the case closely with us and going to give us an interesting perspective on it, because you can see both sides here. We got 2 weeks before trial. Kouri Richins' attorney filing this motion, claiming lead detective Jeff O'Driscoll texted a witness saying essentially, answer our calls so we can prep you, or the next time I knock on your door, I'll have a warrant and a catch pole for your dog. As a former prosecutor, when you read something like that in a court filing, what's your gut reaction? Is this aggressive law enforcement, or does it cross into witness intimidation territory?
It's certainly needlessly aggressive. It doesn't need to be like that. As the prosecutor, you want to be the one wearing the white hats and riding the white horse and being pure and moral, and you're trying to do the righteous and just thing for these victims. But when you have somebody on your side who's, potentially crossing a line in terms of messing with witnesses, scaring them, intimidating them, that does damage to this impression that you're trying to give the jury as this upstanding prosecution team. It's a team. And especially if that's the lead detective, the jury might look at that dude with a side eye and say, what other lines has he possibly crossed in this investigation?
The same motion alleges the prosecution's lead investigator, Travis Hooper, told a second witness that their previously granted immunity remains conditional upon continued cooperation. And it very well might, whether that witness wants to accept that or not. And that declining further meetings could put that immunity at risk. That's not a crazy concept. That is how a lot of this does work. Even if you decide further down the road, I don't want to do that anymore. It's more so now we're looking at kind of the means by which one is then being compelled to give this said testimony for that immunity. From your experience on both sides of the aisle, how often do you see immunity wielded in this way? And does that kind of language constitute an actual threat under Utah law, or is it just hardball tactics to get somebody to come into court that is, maybe a little bit too harsh? Maybe the verbiage needs to be toned down a bit. You could get the same message across a different way.
This one, I really don't take issue with. This is actually pretty standard. When it comes to an immunity agreement, the general idea is that, hey, bro, we're going to keep you out of prison and protect you, and you're not going to be charged for the cooperation you give. You got to give that cooperation. And it's not just one interview. It's not just one meeting. It's cooperation throughout the entire pendency of the case, including during trial and giving trial testimony, and not only being cooperative, but being truthful. If the individual is inaccurate or inconsistent in some way, that can result in a revocation of immunity. And so this one actually seems pretty standard to me. I think defense is sort of overblowing it and trying to conflate this immunity issue with this prior alleged witness intimidation or harsh tactics, or however you want to call it.
As a layperson, it feels that way.
Yeah.
Is it that? I mean, is it like where they were like, do they have a Joker in their hand and it's Joker Wild and they're like, we can do anything we want right now? and they're playing it for like every inch they can get to make this look really, really bad out there. Because again, you're going for reasonable doubt. That's all you're going for here. And if you can make the process look corrupt, if you can make the process look rough, where it's uncomfortable and people are being compelled to say things things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't say. That can create reasonable doubt in a juror's mind. I'm wondering if that's what's going on right here. The defense is now demanding all communications between prosecutors, investigators, and witnesses in this case. If the judge grants that motion, how damaging could it potentially be for the state, not just legally, but in terms of credibility with the jury before opening statements even begin, especially if the prosecutors have been playing rather hardball, if they're talking to the witnesses in non-snowflakey terms, if they're talking to them pretty direct, pretty rude, pretty, here's, you do this or this is going to happen. I mean, we already have the one where it's basically threatening, we're going to take your dog if you don't cooperate.
Very Wizard of Oz-like, isn't it?
It's like, yeah, you need to cooperate, but it seems to be almost crossing a line of like, we're going to, take your dog and take him to the pound and God knows what else that's insinuating there. Is that a bridge too far? I mean, it has nothing to do with the actual murder case and the charges against Kouri Richins. But if you can create this chaos over here, like we saw in another case, the Barry Morphew case, that whole thing got destroyed because the prosecution was out of their mind the way they were handling it so sloppily. I think it was in Colorado, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yes.
Yeah. So and they got disbarred because of it. And now Barry's, it's been a little bit of time, but it's just drug it out even further. The state ended up, filing charges again, and they're going to try him again. But these sort of things can really derail a trial. What do you think we're going to see here if the judge grants that motion to have all of those communications revealed? Is that even a realistic possibility this close to a trial to expect that sort of transparency of private communications be revealed to a defense attorney?
Defense is arguing that, hey, based on the nature of this alleged improper influence from law enforcement onto witnesses, we need to know what they were telling them. We need to know if they were twisting their arm, if they were suggesting things, if they were insinuating, hey, maybe say this, hey, maybe don't say this. When I was a prosecutor, I would say, hey, the number one golden rule when I'm prepping a witness, tell the truth. Just get up there and tell the truth. That's all we need. The truth is going to bring it home for us. But when you have the opposite impression to the jury of some sort of puppet master behind the scenes who's corralling these witnesses, influencing them, possibly intimidating them to give testimony that aligns with the government's case, I think a jury might look at that and say, gosh, I can't place faith in any of these witnesses who are prepped by the government because I have such a doubt in my mind as to whether it was done properly and what influence may have been exerted.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a strong case, if the government's case against Kouri Richins is as strong as they like to pretend it is, why would you need to be doing this or saying these things to these witnesses? I mean, look, there's people don't want to go to court. People don't want to take time out of their day to go and testify or have attention on them for, maybe somewhat embarrassing, shady moments in their own life. Let's talk about Robert Crozier here. He recanted his testimony from October. He originally told investigators that he sold fentanyl to the housekeeper, who then allegedly supplied Kouri Richins. Now he says it was Oxy, not fentanyl, and that he was detoxing and he was out of it during the original interview. The defense says this eviscerates the prosecution's sourcing theory. I mean, does it? Or can the state pivot mid-trial without destroying his credibility? Or was it on shaky ground to begin with, but the prosecution really wants that original version? All the other nuances to that be damned. You're going to say what I told you to say and say what you said back then, even though you've said this is kind of why you said it that way. Or we're going to take your dog. I mean, it's it's a little much. Yeah.
I can't help but wonder if the prosecution is starting to shake in their boots a little bit. They're starting to see the writing on the wall of how this could look at trial. And then sometimes, Tony, in these law enforcement communities and prosecutors' offices, you've got some outstanding folks. and you've got some not so outstanding folks. You've got people
Sure.
with egos. You got people who want to win. You got people who might push the envelope, who might take it too far in order to try and win. And that's what the defense will seize on. And they will say, hey, this central witness, this key witness completely contradicted themselves on a critical point here. And then the prosecution sort of later on is trying to do damage control by influencing these other witnesses to say what they want them to say because they're trying to salvage their case, which now sucks. I mean, that's the argument I'm making to the jury, and I'm telegraphing that in opening statements.
It just feels like you're grasping for straws if you have to threaten taking somebody's dog. I mean, what did they say? Something about taking like a dog, one of those poles?
Use a pole. Yeah, they got to use the dog. I mean, showing up to your house with the pole, with the dog catching.
We
pole,
use those in the vet field.
Just
those
the visual of that.
Yeah, it's horrifying. You don't want to do that. It would instill fear upon somebody, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's either the work of someone who has zero anger management skills,
right,
and is not good at communicating what they want done and how to do it in an effective manner, which very well could be the case. There's, I'd say, a majority of the population. But when you're in that position, you'd hope for better, but you don't always get it. But with something like this, let's talk about some of the poisoning issues in this case. We have the story, and it is just that. There is no proof to these stories. That Eric was allegedly attempted to be poisoned by a sandwich that Kouri left for her husband in his vehicle one day, asked what he wanted to eat, dropped off his favorite sandwich. He said he felt violently ill afterwards, threw up, and then he told some friends he thought maybe she was trying to poison him. Or he had tainted ham. I don't know. I mean,
if he left it in the car.
Well, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he got food poisoning and Kouri had absolutely nothing to do with it. I mean, I think if we're going over the track record of any long-term relationship, we've probably poisoned our significant others a time or two through cooking, unintentionally, or from a restaurant we bought food from. Because there's no toxology here that says that sandwich had poison in it. There's no fentanyl that's ever been recovered either. No pills, no forensic link directly tying Kouri to the drugs. The toxology shows Eric Richins had 5 times a lethal dose in his system. The sourcing chain now has a critical witness saying he didn't sell what they said he sold. And look, people take fentanyl. Who's to say he was taking it and didn't tell his wife? There's a lot of possibilities here that aren't just she poisoned him with a ton of fentanyl. Yeah. We just don't know. I mean, and the other aspect of this, it doesn't sound like it was the happiest of relationships. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that then someone is going to poison another person to get out of the relationship. Sometimes when people are in unhappy relationships, they kill themselves. I'm not saying that that's what Eric was doing, but they also take drugs recreationally to try and numb that pain, numb that annoyance, numb that shitty relationship that they are currently enduring. And if you're taking fentanyl, and I don't know if he was or wasn't, but one could take a certain amount thinking I'll be fine with this, and then it didn't work out so well. I mean, these are all things. These are all pieces of doubt, obviously, that the defense is going to try and introduce into this case. How effectively do you think they can do it?
Well, I imagine the defense has made a motion to this effect or will by the time of trial. The judge needs to be very careful because when it comes to this prior alleged drugging, so there's a rule of evidence. It's usually 403 in most states, which indicates that if the probative value of a certain piece of evidence is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, by the danger of misleading the jury, confusing the issues, conflating the issues, then it should not be admitted. And this prior alleged drugging seems very shaky to me. There is no toxicology to prove it. There are no other witnesses that I'm aware of that could somehow corroborate or verify that there was a drugging that took place. It seems like it's just casting an immense amount of shade on Kouri Richins with very little to back it up. And if the judge lets in that prior alleged drugging and there's a conviction, I think there is a substantial ground for appeal.
Wow.
The infamous walk the dog letter found in Kouri's jail cell, allegedly instructing her mother how to lie on the stand. I mean, it's written in code, so one can take it however they want to take it. She's saying it was, part of a novel or a screenplay or whatever the hell she was saying. It's saying it's anything but what the prosecution's saying it is. It's been partially admitted, but the judge is still deciding on portions of it. If you're the prosecution, how central is that letter to proving consciousness of guilt? And if you're the defense, how do you explain away what looks like a script for witness tampering?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm defense, I'm sort of riding the horse of there are all these paper thin inferences that the prosecution wants to sell you. This prior alleged drugging for which there's no documentation, there's no criminal police report, there's no toxicology. There is this, she's an author, she's an artist, she's a creative person. Creative person create things, and sometimes they might be seen as a little wacky by somebody else. That does not mean that it is some kind of confession to a crime or attempt to influence a witness to protect themselves from a crime. Now, if you're the prosecution, you're kind of saying, hey, this just seems par for the course. Look at that book she wrote, and then look at this letter, and then look at all of the incriminating, suspicious stuff that's going on. No indication this guy was suicidal that I'm aware of that's publicly been reported. So add it up, guys. Use your common sense. So I think, multiple interpretations of it.
And that's the truth. At the end of the day, it is about the interpretation of this. I mean, two things can be true at the same time. Kouri could have been trying to communicate to her mom, please, testify this way, say something this way. And it may have been, it may not be on the up and up. It may be, tampering with a witness potentially. But it may also be, look, if you say it this way, it's going to come across this way. People are going to take it this way. And that's not what reality is. So it needs to be delivered a certain way so people can truly understand what reality is. Otherwise, they're going to run with it that direction, trying to curb others' perceptions of reality or what people are going to jump to conclusions with. It's a thing. It does exist, obviously. It exists in marketing. It exists in all aspects of our life. We don't want people running with something that's not accurate. So you're going to find ways sometimes of saying it one way, because saying it this one seemingly clear way, they're still going to take it another. So we got to do it this way. And you can't exactly just flat out say that when you're behind bars without someone catching on as to what you're saying. So could there be coded language that really doesn't necessarily hide a murder, just more so phrase it this way so people don't go down that road? I think that's a real possibility too. I don't know. The closer we get to this trial, the less damning it feels against Kouri Richins.
Yeah,
I feel that way. And I don't know if just because this case has been screwed up 7 ways to Tuesday through bad investigative work or what, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that they have enough to get her here. I really don't. I mean, at the end of the day, what's your gut telling you, Eric?
I'm kind of gravitating in that direction, and I wasn't always there. I think in the beginning, I was kind of like, yikes, this seems problematic. But yeah, and like you said, when it comes to the note, like think about a person who's wrongfully charged. They're going to want to take measures to protect themselves, to vindicate themselves. And if that measure might look like, hey, mom, be careful about how you say something, and maybe phrase it like this so that people don't further condemn me wrongfully. Those that's a possibility.
Well, and mom, it's not like mom knows this process. I mean, so she's probably just trying to guide her a little bit, just like you said.
Yeah, and how many of us, I don't know, maybe in this room,
I know where you're going,
who have it where you've had to have that conversation with your mom and you're not covering up a murder. You're just like, hey, when this person comes, don't bring this up. If you're going to talk about this, approach it this way.
Yes.
Not because mom is out to like create World War III, but because she's ignorant. Because it's just how she communicates. And you'd rather it be delivered a certain way. Again, not because you're hiding anything, but because people are going to take it another way. And you're just trying to put some, barriers up or put some padding on the walls for someone's candor. It's not I don't know. It's not crazy. And it's not necessarily criminal either, but I guess that's what the jury is there to decide. Your thoughts in the comments section on our YouTube. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi to find us there. Or you can join us on our Substack, hiddenkillers.substack.com. The link is in the description. We'd love to get your thoughts on the case right there. So go ahead and weigh in. We'll continue this conversation off the air in the comments section. Until next time, for Todd, Stacy, and Eric, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.